As expected, some people were very off-put by my video, Did Women Ruin the MCU? Because despite the clickbait title, my ultimate answer was no. Do I agree that there have been characters that have been done badly in Marvel's push to integrate more female characters in the MCU? Yes, and I believe that their strategy of going about it has not been good. However, my ultimate answer was no, they have not. There is a lot more going wrong with Marvel right now than simply trying to integrate more female characters, and that's solely tearing down everything, which is what I went over. But my purpose of making that video was to try to push back against some of the backlash to female characters in media, because for me and a lot of people, we always said it's not the female characters, because I want there to be good, actually strong female characters. But for me, the ones that they pushed out were not well written. For a lot of us, it really was just the writing behind these characters, but as some people on social media have taken it, now they are reacting badly to any time there is a female lead in an action show or a video game or a movie. And I wanted to push back against that it's not what you're doing so much as how you're doing it, and reacting badly to whenever you see a female character done in a project is not going to actually help anything. But I am concerned that the pendulum is going to swing too back the other way if it already hasn't, which I think that it kind of has. But I did want to make this follow-up video because there were some points in that video I did that I didn't really cover and that I just wanted to hammer home, because definitely there are people who still disagree with me and believe that Marvel becoming a girls brand is inherently what killed it, and that it trying to appeal more to women at all is what killed the brand. And I feel like I wasn't clear enough on my points there, so I just wanted to get into it a little further. First of all, I already talked about how Marvel actually was very appealing for what's typically considered a boy brand to women, and you had about 40% typically turn up to movies, so it wasn't really a problem that needed to be fixed. But I want to point out that just because you try to get more of a female audience to something typically considered a boys thing does not mean you're going to destroy that thing. And let me give you the examples. Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, very popular character, right? Very prominent Batman character, very famous and iconic. Do you know why she was created? Well, she was created for Batman 66, the TV show, and they create a comic for her to debut in to justify her insertion into the Batman 66 TV show with Adam West. But do you know why she was created? Because they wanted to get more of a female audience watching Batman. That is the entire reason why Batgirl, the most famous version of Batgirl, was created. Now, did she bring more of a female audience to Batman 66? I don't know. But it doesn't matter, because she became a very, very popular character in her own right, and she was created to try to get more of a female audience for a show, and she did not destroy that thing. Another example would be Poison Ivy. Do you know why she was created initially? Because they saw the success of Catwoman and said, we want to have more female characters and female villains in the Batman mythos. Poison Ivy, also very successful character. So just wanting to create more female characters or appeal to a more female audience does not inherently destroy anything that is typically considered a boys thing. Those are just two examples. Now, those are two good examples of it, and listen, comics have actually done this since forever. She-Hulk. The original version of She-Hulk, not the one you see in the show. The original version of She-Hulk from the comics is a completely different character than what you see in the show. She was a gender-bent version of a male hero, and the original comic book version of She-Hulk proved to be very popular. Maybe not to carry her own solo series. She's had various solo series over the years, some more successful than others, but she proved to be very popular as an individual character, and that's why she stuck around. Now, these days people will associate She-Hulk with the bad version of her, and once again, that is down to execution. You know, comics and media, they've been doing this since forever. You can do that and be successful at it and still maintain the audience that you already have. And listen, Black Widow, why do you think she's in the Avengers? Seriously. because there's a trope, and I've recognized this since I was very little, in all of these action franchises, that while action movies like this usually appear to boys, there is an audience of girls who also like them. So it used to be a trope to have just one, if not two, but at least one female character, a token female character, to make sure that the female audience, the potential female audience, could feel like it's for them as well. And that's why Black Widow exists, and that's why, going back to all these other teams like Power Rangers, you at least see one female character on them. And these franchises were not ruined. They thrived. These characters were popular, which is me going to say that just because you're trying to get more of a female audience on an action show or something that is typically more appealing to boys does not mean you're going to destroy it, does not mean that the character is going to be bad. Carol Danvers, please watch her in Earth's Mightiest Hero. She's a good character there. It was the way that they did her in Captain Marvel, and probably the expectations, the crippling expectations on how female characters were going to be done, which simultaneously pushed there to be more of them and also pushed the limits on them of what they could be, of the flaws that they could have. Now, here's the question. Do you need to have more female characters in something to be more appealing? Do you need to have more of different groups in order for something to be most widely appealing? Does it actually work? Well, yes and no. Like, for example, I would say that Black Widow probably did help the Avengers to feel more widely appealing in a way. But on the other hand, there is a way that this is done wrong. I've already covered a couple of them, but let's go to the Hobbit franchise. Tariel. She was a character inserted into the story, shoehorned in because they were afraid that The Hobbit was way too centric with male characters and they needed some female character in there. The very cringy romance with her and Keeley was also thrown in there to, I would say, appeal to more of a female audience and also try to get the Hunger Games audience over there to the movie. And that was done terribly. And believe me and my sister hated that character. We were gunning against it for so long. We did not want it to be in there because we didn't want anything to mess with the lore of Tolkien, the lore of The Hobbit, because he did create a lot of strong female characters, but not really so much in The Hobbit. But we were vehemently against this character and this cringy romance because it disrupted the lore. And you know what? Growing up with The Lord of the Rings, the female characters maybe weren't as prominent throughout the original trilogy of The Lord of the Rings. But guess what? As a little girl, I loved that trilogy. I love different male characters in that trilogy. I never really asked for anything more because the characters were relatable to me already. So the answer, once again, is kind of yes and no. I don't think that you need to have a female character in something in order for it to be widely appealing. That doesn't necessarily mean that women are going to like your thing more either, because once again, using The Hobbit as an example, that just made me and my sister mad at it because you were disrupting the lore. We didn't care about there being female characters in The Hobbit. We already liked the story for what it was. On the other hand, you know, it probably didn't hurt the Avengers to have a female character, and it probably wouldn't hurt to have more if you develop them properly and if you don't damage the other characters. Like, that would be a bad thing inherently if you feel the need to tear down characters that came before in order to prop up the new ones, which is the real problem with it, because once again, it's a yes or no answer. Pushing more female characters doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more of an audience, but if you have a brand new thing that you're working on, like it's not in an adaptation or it's not going to mess with the lore of anything, then there's no problem with introducing more female characters and see where that can lead to. You do have to accept, though, that maybe introducing a female character will not bring a new female audience, and that's okay. You just have to live with that. There is something to be said about having female characters bring people on if there's an opening for it, but you should not burn down anything, the pre-existing lore of a story, or shoehorn anything in just to make it happen, because that's not necessarily going to work out. That's not necessarily going to bring about the new audience that you want. But let's go back to the MCU specifically, and let's go back to why I believe that the female characters they were pushing were done so badly. Now, let's say that you're a person working on a project, let's say Moon Knight, for example, and you've got a ridiculous deadline to push it out as soon as possible, as we talked about before, the ridiculous deadlines that Marvel had imposed upon people. So ridiculous deadlines, you're working like crazy to try to get this new show out, and you're just trying to patch it all together and get the scripts out. Sometimes they would shoot without a script, edit it together. The post-production barely has any time, especially because they're not sure what they want. And on top of that, Marvel is mandating a, 51% increase on female characters. And on top of that, as I understand, during that era of Marvel, perhaps you didn't even have the best people working on these shows. Perhaps, clearly we've seen that with writers like Michael Waldron and whatnot. So I would imagine that it would just feel like these female characters are being stamped on and shoehorned, and that is the result that we got. And yes, there were also attempts to tear down the previous characters in order to prop up the new ones, and that is never going to work. That is just going to bring more hate to the new characters. But as I was pointing out with my other examples, pushing more female characters doesn't necessarily have to be like that, and you're not necessarily going to have to lose any of your audience or cause any division by doing that. So going forward and talking about the promotion of female characters in media, which I think is going to significantly roll back because of all this controversy, whether they're saying it out loud or not, you just need to remember, pay attention to how things are being done, not just inherently by being done. There doesn't need to be any of this stupid gender war stuff brought into discussions about this media. There doesn't need to be gatekeeping on the level that anytime you try to make something a little bit more appealing to women, then it's going to be destroyed or something. And if you're asking, why do these things have to be more appealing to women? Well, the answer from a business perspective is money. The more people you bring in to watch these projects, then the more money you will make. And that's why companies do try that stuff. But doing that doesn't, as long as you're not burning down what came before, does not inherently mean it's going to be bad. I just want Marvel to be better at it. They don't have to push a 51% mandate. Just, treat all of your characters with respect. Try to do all of them well. Try to actually make your things good, and then these stupid wars about it won't happen. And as I understand, Marvel is actually trying that. Like, I'm hearing rumors from multiple sources that the Thunderbolts, despite my misgivings about the trailer, is actually good. And Daredevil Born Again is good. And I just hope that they start making good content again, and that other companies follow suit so that we can stop having these silly arguments and these silly political gender war arguments come into these things. It's kind of like when people try to express what's wrong with movies today, and some people say things are just too political, and it used to be that movies weren't political, and now they are. And other people will say, no, movies have always been political, you're crazy. The truth tends to be somewhere in the middle. Yes, movies will always have political themes and things, whether consciously or subconsciously influenced by the writer, because a writer cannot help to have their own beliefs influence their work, and that will always be the case. But these days, perhaps there's been more content that's done it badly and done it more blatantly, done it more in your face, which is probably what people are reacting to, which is their reaction to say that politics shouldn't be in movies, even though they always will be. It's all a matter about how things are done, not what you're doing, just how it's done. But that's all I got for you guys today. Are you mad at me? Comment below if you're mad at me, or if you're not mad at me and you agree with what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm saying. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting this channel. You want to support me on Patreon, check out the link in the description. I will need the support after I'm coming out with these takes that people don't like. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.